Hi everyone and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming new moon in the sign of Cancer taking place on the 20th of July 2020. Like all lunar activities all throughout the year 2020 until this present moment, well, this new moon is going to be really special in its own way. It's going to be really distinctive, but I think this is like a general theme of 2020 because most very relevant astrological dances, for example, all the big conjunctions and all the phases of the lunations up until this present moment, were really unique, distinctive. They really had a very powerful karmic element attached to them. So this particular new moon is not really any different because on one hand it is taking place in 28 degrees and around 26 minutes of the sign of Cancer, which technically isn't an erratic degree yet, but practically it is. At least from my personal perspective and opinion, I treat it as an anaretic new moon. Anaretic meaning the last degree of any sign, so specifically 29 degrees. It is a karmic degree. It is a degree which speaks about culmination, things coming to fruition, endings, closures, resolutions, and it also has a very powerful shadow side attached to it because the shadow has very much to do with everything that was taking place in that area of life, for example, until that moment where something happens in an erratic degree. So it is based on the past, it is based on past choices, decisions, actions, everything that happened in your life, in that specific area of your life. So, because of this new moon, of course, it bears the energies and the general symbolism of any new moon, which is new beginning, fresh start, creating something new. And creating is actually a keyword here because we are talking about the very fertile sign of Cancer. So, it is emotional fertility, emotional creativity, nurture, solidarity, compassion, the sign of the mother, the home of the moon. So it has very much to do with our emotional world, with our souls, with our relation with emotions, with even our past from an emotional perspective, the culture that we belong to, our local community, our families. So basically everything that has to do with the symbolism of Cancer. But at the same time, it is also energetic. So whatever new beginning this has to create, to manifest, to produce, or to lead to, it has also very much to do with the past, with everything that was in this area of life for you previously. So this can also be like, for example, a new beginning which allows a closure, allows you to move forward. It can allow you to create something totally new based on the past. Or, for example, to take a leap of faith and escape the past. It is very individual because the main aspect that this new moon holds, it's actually an opposition, an almost exact and perfect opposition to Saturn. So this can have a lot of compromise attached to it. It can involve very in-depth decision making process, taking different things into account, weighing it, judging it, making a decision based on a lot of factors. It can also represent overcoming certain limitations, or it can also have a very positive connotation, like a massive karmic harvest, where you have worked a lot or suffered a lot for it in the past, leading up to this present moment. So basically, individually, it can mean a lot of different things, and it is very personal, because on one hand, it all depends on where Cancer falls in your chart and what has been taking place in that area of life for you. but at the same time, it also highly depends on your relationship with Saturn, Saturn retrograde, how you embody the symbolism of Saturn. So that can mean your own inner structural, your own personal rules and regulations which govern your life, or it can represent your relation with the external rules and regulations, the customs, the traditions, the structure of society. Or Saturn can also be professional, like work, job, career, soul path, obligations, duties to other people, or professional obligations and duties. So the symbolism of both this new moon and also Saturn and these areas of life, as in the Capricorn Cancer axis, well, it is very, very personal. So personally, it can be almost anything. Now, collectively speaking, especially taking into consideration the general setup of the world stage and whatever is going on in the world, all the karma, all the pivotal moments, all the big change. So collectively, it's a much clearer picture of what this new moon, what kind of potential this new moon holds. And of course, at the same time, there are other celestial conversations taking place in the sky, which even though don't converse directly to this new moon, they still, hold a certain type of frequency, so they're also very, very influential. So first of all, I would like to mention a couple of things of how this new moon can play out in your life personally. So as I said earlier, it very much depends on which area of your life Cancer falls in, Cancer Capricorn axis falls into. And then it depends on your relationship and how you embody, how the symbolism of Saturn manifests in your life. So let me just give you a few examples of, and these are just examples, I'm not saying that this is how it's going to manifest in your life, of what the main theme is, what can you expect as in a general big picture, depending on where Cancer is in your chart. So for example, if it's in the first house, it can be you making the decision, Saturn, to nurture yourself, to protect yourself, to have a much more healthier, nurturing, supportive attitude to yourself. And a very healthy relation with the self is going to reflect and be projected onto each and every area of your life, especially your relationships. So that can be a moment when you embody your healing journey, when you become complete, when you decide to stand up for yourself, because the shadow expression of Cancer is overprotection. Cancer hides in its shell whenever it is in big trouble or whenever it senses danger. So this can be how this is playing out in your life, as in projecting the protective shell around you, and that can represent a nurturing and protective psychological environment for yourself and your loved ones. Or it can represent, based on your past work, Saturn, based on your past inner work that you have done with yourself psychologically. It can represent a powerful new beginning, a resolution, a culmination, when it's almost like a rebirth. Or if Cancer falls in your second house, for example, it can represent a powerful new financial opportunity, but it requires a lot of commitment, hard work and sacrifices, Saturn. Or it can simply be a powerful new beginning which comes to you as a karmic reward based on your past sacrifices and work and whatever you have done for other people, or for yourself or for a company. Or it can also represent, for example, like a help or intervention or, a kind gesture done by someone who has a lot of, social or financial power. Saturn in Capricorn is the teacher or the highly educated and trained professional, or it can be a leader, a director, a CEO, anything like that. So it can be someone intervening in your life materially where they advantage you. But of course, disadvantage can be a compromise because you have to accept it and you have to live with it. Now, in your third house, it can represent like a new, very close and tight friendship, or healing your relations with your siblings, or learning something new, but that might not be like a course or official study, but simply mastering new skills, or a new communication, a new online connection, a new way of thinking, a new mental, intellectual, creative process that you adapt. It can be very many things, but of course it requires some sacrifice and time and effort, Saturn. In the fourth house, now this can be, for example, an unexpected help, or like just an example, receiving, an inheritance prematurely as a gesture of help, as a gesture of solidarity. Or it can be quite the opposite, leaving your family, leaving your household, starting a new life, starting a new family, because all of these require some sacrifices and a lot of commitment. Because if you have to leave your family, well, you have to accept that emotional closure, that, being apart from them. Or if it's the opposite, like receiving some kind of help or benefit from your family, or from a very close friend, someone you regard as family, Saturn can represent that moral indebtment. But anyway, if it's in your fourth house, it can mean so very many things depending on your familiar relationships, depending on your past, your childhood, for example, how your life was regarding your family and your familiar circle, your place and your soul's place in the world, within your community, etc., or a house, even in a physical sense, your shelter, your home, your relations with your mother or your parents or your siblings, your family. It can be so very many things. And even though it's an erratic degree, it doesn't have to be anything negative. It can be like a closure in the form of a forgiveness, accepting to move away from the past and how the past was, starting, a relationship with your family, fresh and new, from zero, where the past won't matter and everyone involved can just work for a much more harmonious and, equitable future together. If it's in your fifth house, that can be, for example, a massive new creative project, something that can allow you to truly tap into your creativity and to use all your creative skills, because the fifth house can be seen as your child. But if you create something, for example, for an artist, its creation is the child from a Jungian perspective. It can also be like self-expression, why not? It can also be, the fifth house is also matters of the heart, so it can be a new love. This doesn't guarantee a relationship because it doesn't belong in the seventh house. So the commitment and the forming of the bond, there is no guarantee for that. But it can be like a new love, and it doesn't even have to be a person. It can be an activity, a hobby, a philosophy, anything that involves love and matters of the heart, passion, courage, willingness to take a risk. It can even be self-love, self-nurture, self-care. But of course, all of these oppose Saturn. So on one hand, it will need a lot of sacrifice or commitment, or for you to stay on this path for a prolonged period of time. Because, Saturn in this case will be in the 11th house. So you're basically building for your long-term future, for your future stability. So it doesn't matter how this new love or this passion or whatever plays out in your life. It is something that has to serve you long term. In the sixth house, it can be like a detox, a powerful and very useful new routine, a new work which allows you to experience a totally new routine, something healthier, something more creative, something that also nurtures you, because the sixth house is also service to others. But because this is an opposition with Saturn, it can be through the service to others, you also serve yourself, your own interests, either because you're rewarded or appreciated or emotionally it means a lot for you. So it's very nurturing and healing. Or it can also be physical healing, like finally feeling better from a long illness or a sickness, or solving some digestive problems, hormonal problems. In the seventh house, it can be a new partnership, a new one-on-one alliance, a new relationship, but it will require some serious commitment because opposite Saturn. Or it can also be a karmic reward. For example, the alliance or partnerships which you have worked for. And here worked for can mean, a lot of inner work, healing yourself, making yourself be open, making sure that you can project your best and highest qualities onto others. And the symbolism of Saturn in this case, it represents fairness that you expect to get in return, maybe emotionally, maybe in regarding to a partnership or an alliance, may it be love, romantic, or work, business, contract. You require to receive the same as you give. So this can be like a reward for Saturn, for making your life, your inner world, your personality based on equity, fairness, dignity. Or it can be an old contract paying off handsomely, and that karmic closure, as in you receive the payment, can allow you a fantastic new beginning. It can be so very many different things. In the eighth house, it can be, for example, like an inheritance, a new contract, a new offer, powerful changes and transformations in your contractual relationships. For example, your work contract being upgraded or changed or transformed into something else. It can, for example, be paying off a debt, an older debt or something that was really weighing you down, and that can represent a new beginning, because when you pay off the debt, it's like a new chapter of freedom in your life. Or it can actually be the opposite, taking a loan, qualifying for a loan. Or it can also represent someone asking for your help, for your sacrifice, for you to intervene in their lives. So basically, something that you owe to other people, as in a duty, as in a moral obligation maybe, or maybe just as a human being wanting to help another person. In the eighth house, it can be very many things, but whatever it is, it will transform your life, because that is the main energy of the eighth house. It is transformation. It can be regeneration, it can be healing, it can also be like psychological healing, finally getting rid of that massive trauma that weighed you down all your life. In the ninth house, it can be like new studies, which require a lot of commitment, or relocation. It can be a new international business, a new travel, evolution in your legal case, a closure. But it can also be, which doesn't really favor you, but it's still a closure. It is still, the course of justice. It can also be like a new spiritual path, a new faith, new life philosophy, new life and worldview. In the 10th house, it can be a new career, a new job, advancing on your soul path, or a termination of a goal, a career, a job. But the termination is not really negative, even if it can seem that way, because it will naturally start a new chapter in your life. So if it's like certain closures, terminations, losses, don't be discouraged, because it is just a necessary step to progress forward. But at the same time, it can also be like stepping up the the hierarchical ladder within your organization or work or society or whatever that is susceptible to hierarchy. But Saturn, it will require a lot of commitment, a lot of sacrifice, but it can be like, a karmic closure, like a free energy if you have worked for it a lot in the past. So it can be your reward. In the 11th house, it can be your hopes and dreams, a dream of yours, a goal, a desire entering reality, and that will give you the sensation that you achieved something very important for your long-term future. But of course, Saturn, it either comes as a compromise, or it involves a lot of work or sacrifice or time or inner change for you to change your own rules and regulations that you have for yourself. Or in the 12th house, it can be emotional healing, like totally closing the past and starting a new life. It can be something being revealed to you, even though, the new moon doesn't really have that much power for revelatory qualities, because, it's darkness. When a full moon is shedding light on something and the light is revelatory, the new moon is actually shadowy. But the shadows also have their revelatory qualities, because secrets, someone telling you a secret, someone having a Freudian slip, for example, and projecting the truth behind the secret onto you. It can be a massive karmic closure that will start out a new life. It can be even magical and mystical, where you remember or recall a past life, past existence. You come to terms with something very negative that happened in the past. You receive prophetic dreams and visions. So personally, it can be a lot of different things. It can play out a lot of different ways. But around this time, a new moon is the conjunction of the sun and moon. And both of these hold a very faint, very, very weak trine. So a celestial conversation of supreme harmony with Neptune. So that can mean a little bit of divine inspiration, divine guidance, very faint, very subtle, very gentle, like a summer breeze which just refreshes you at the right moment when the heat would otherwise discomfort you. So pay close attention to your dreams and to your intuition, because that Neptune can really, really help you, even if it's just a very, very faint little energy there. And at the same time, we also have a sextile between Mars and Venus, and that can make you very, very magnetic, attractive. It can empower your mind, the fertility of your intellect, mind over matter especially. That Neptune also holds a sextile at this time with Saturn and Jupiter in Capricorn, the sign of manifestation. So basically, dream your future into existence. Now, collectively speaking, the symbolism of this new moon also can mean so very many different things. And on one hand, it's kind of personal to your own culture, to your local community, where you are in the world, your emotional connections to the big picture of the society that you live in, as in culture, ancestral heritage, nationality, ethnic origins, etc. And your culture's relations to centralized power, for example, because Saturn is going to be in Capricorn. And let's not forget that it's not just in opposition to Saturn, it's also in opposition to Jupiter and Pluto, all of them retrograde. But of course, the opposition with Jupiter and Pluto is not exact, but they still matter, they're still there. So it's about secrets being revealed, law, justice, karma, the whole COVID-19 situation, economic crisis, political crisis, social crisis, crisis of housing, crisis in the medical system, cancer, the nurturer, nurses, doctors, or Saturn in Capricorn, rules and regulations, the power of authorities, the power of the law, the centralized power basically. Saturn in his home sign of Capricorn. The leader, the ruler, the judge, he who determines how things have to be, how they have to play out according to the rules and customs, traditions, the legal system, all of that. And since the symbolism of Cancer has so much to do with ethnic origins, country, culture, the borders between countries and nations, especially an heretic degree is borders, boundaries. As I said earlier, Cancer in its shell, the protective shell. So it can be like ethnicities, cultures, countries protecting their own people, restricting a little bit more international travel, international flights, or people from other cultures, the foreigner getting involved way too much in their own culture. And this can represent, the foreigner can also represent big organizations, supermarket chains, for example, Walmart, or it can represent like big pharma, all the merchandise and commercial activities which source from China, for example. So this can have a powerful restriction here, which blocks all of that out or attempts it. And this can stir up spirit, because the sign of Cancer is the power and the unity, the solidarity of the people, the emotional world of the people. And we are together as an ethnic origin, an ethnic group, or a culture or a country, because of the feeling we have in our hearts, because of that emotional solidarity, because we identify ourselves with our cultures, and that is basically emotional. Because there are a lot of people who, even though they're born in a culture, they say, well, because I don't feel any of this, I don't belong to this culture, and bye bye. So of course, for some people it can represent ripping away from their culture, moving away, or simply psychologically dissociating themselves from their culture or ethnic origins or country. But on the other hand, for some people it is actually the opposite, returning to their own cultures, to their own countries, trying to find their ways, the place of their souls once more in the culture which birthed them, where they started their lives in. So this is a very, very protective energy, and chances are that people are 1,000,000% gonna protect themselves, their loved ones, and everyone who they care for, neighbors, friends, family, everyone inside the culture, from abuse of power, from misuse of power, from the political battle, from affecting them greatly. So this can also represent revolt, revolution, people having enough, the power of the people, because an heretic degree, this is where the power of the people is actually being born, being created. The emotional connection, strengthening between people of the same culture. It doesn't even have to be culture, it can be something that allows them to feel the sensation, the emotion of belonging. So it can be also be like something totally non-physical, like a soul tribe, or people standing united for an ideology or for a very important goal for them, or a vision, a feeling, anything. It can be anything, as long as it symbolizes the power of the people, solidarity, unity, mutual support. So right around this time, Mars is in Aries. Mars is still conjunct Chiron in the sign of Aries. So people are going to be very, very passionate. They will definitely want to stand up for themselves. Mars in Aries, courage, passion, determination, devotion, initiatory qualities, as in acting on the impulse whenever it reaches all times highs inside of themselves. So one way or another, it doesn't, regardless of how it plays out where you are in the world, it is still gonna be the people, the unity of the people showing and expressing their powers, maybe fighting off limitations, rules and regulations which they don't agree with. Saturn in the sign of Capricorn, and they're gonna have a lot of reasons for it. Jupiter and Pluto conjunction, all the secrets and filth, corruption, nepotism, incompetence, flaws of governments, big organizations, big pharma, the general symbolism of Capricorn being exposed right now. So it can have a very powerful emotional reaction, and before it gets, all-time high, as in the autumn when Mars is gonna meet with Eris and they are gonna square these Capricorn planets. So before that, this new moon can just give birth to the unity of people. This is where people can all of a sudden organize themselves, and their emotions are gonna fuel them, feed them, empower them. Mars and Aries, they are willing to fight, they're willing to stand up for themselves, they're willing to express their sovereignty, their sovereign wills. They might demand that everyone responsible for the limitations Saturn to take ownership of it, and either legally or otherwise just be responsible for their actions and what they did, for their decisions. So basically this just stirs up the big karmic picture even more. This is setting up the world stage, the general big events that are going to take place this autumn. So this new moon is definitely going to be a very powerful, pivotal moment, but we might not see it manifested straight away because, Cancer is emotion. So first of all, it has to boil and, come together inside of us, and only then is it going to manifest. But either way, it is a new beginning, which is also a karmic closure or a karmic culmination at the same time. So it's really, really complex, and it can play out in any way, shape or form. And as I said earlier, Cancer has very strong creational, fertile qualities to it. And since at this time there is a sextile between Neptune, Pluto, Neptune, Jupiter, well, that is the power of the dreams, that is the power of fantasy, that is the power of your spirituality, your most sacred desires, and also Pluto, your true inner power, the power that you possess over your life, not just materially, but in this case, even over your destiny, over your karma, over the big picture of your life and your path in life. So you can very well interpret this energy as, what is it that an individual wishes for the collective, for humanity, for the world. So because this degree is so very fertile, whatever we project onto the world at this time can have a massive influence. So by all means, however you like, however you find it easiest, just express spiritually, working together with the symbolism of a new moon, not just your own desires and dreams and wishes for yourself, for your person, but also extend them to the collective, what you like to wish to see in the world, what kind of resolution, karmic closure you would like to experience, globally, collectively. Like other Cancer celestial phenomenons taking place in that sign, in that part of the sky, this also favors group meditations, mass meditations, or simply having your say on what happens in your community, in the collective that you belong to. Well, thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a very magical and blessed new moon, and I hope that this opposition with Saturn fills your life with karmic rewards, with the generosity of the universe, and it reflects all your wise, diligent, inspired choices and decisions. Thank you once again. Wish everyone a blessed and safe day. Bye for now.